forward to the cloud because we're all about that around here,
Exactly. Everyone that is joining will get started here in about 5 minutes. So yeah, so I don't know what the parking garage situation, but it was, kind of that interesting technology problem, right? You had the key card wasn't working, and so I got the third one, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I gotta see. Hopefully, the ticket process works. So I think all the parking machines, the arms and the parking tickets, because I had a similar problem the other night that just wouldn't take the validated ticket. So I think people, as people are starting to come back, that all the mechanicals are trying to regroup. The digital transformation.
Overloading the system.
Right, exactly. Nothing's been able to keep up. Terry Lee, are you guys getting this rain down there?
A little bit so far. We've been good, but got a little bit this morning warmer, which is nice because it's been really so it's not snow or sleet or any of that stuff we're not supposed to have in the house.
So did you get any of that snow that came up in the south that hit North Carolina?
We got the first round of snow. We get the second round. That actually funny that Charlie got more snow than we did out here. But that's pretty much all we've gotten.
Gotcha.
It's been kind of interesting because in Charleston, depending what part of Charleston you're in, because we didn't get any, and then in other areas they got some. So.
Yep.
All right, it's 9 a.m.
All right, everybody. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second season of the ATARC Cloud and Coffee, the place for discussions on all things modernization and transformation. My name is Chris Oglesby with MorphWorks, and my co-host, Terry Lee.
Hey, good morning, Colin. Happy to have everybody here. I hope everybody has a big cup of coffee ready for our discussion with Fred.
Before the introductions, the platform is hosted under the ATARC Cloud and Infrastructure Pillar with the goal of bringing lessons learned and ideas to the ATARC community. Our focus will be a conversation about our guests' experiences, past and present, executing modernization and transformation efforts. At the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A. There's also a chat, which you see Kirsten just popped a link that will probably come up in our conversation. But there's a Q&A button for questions that you might have during our discussion, and we'll work those into the conversation. So now let's move on to introductions. Today our guest is Fred Bisel, the Community Practice Training and Workforce Development Lead at GSA. Fred, would you mind sharing with the audience a little about your background?
Okay, I'm not going to go quite as far as Tom did, I don't think. So 3 generations ago.
Right, exactly. There we go.
No, so my background actually started in education. So I started was high school and then moved to the college, worked at the college system up in North Carolina for about 15 years, and then transferred. It was as a contractor, and then switched from contractor over to government. And right almost 10 years ago, came down to Charleston, South Carolina with NIWIC with the Department of Navy. And one of the things we were looking at was how to develop training, because my philosophy was you're either moving forward or moving backwards. And I was like, well, I said we could actually do in-house training. So that's kind of what we started doing it in-house. Started pretty small and kind of kept building on it. And so I've been with the government was with NIWIC for about 9 years, and then moved over to during the COVID, actually right at a year, transferred from NIWIC to GSA, and actually got a little wider community that we can reach with GSA.
Great, thank you. So, and thank you for not spending time on 30 years of your.
I was fighting. I wanted to go back to the
exactly.
orphan train and all that, where it all started, 3 generations.
Where it all started, right? So Fred, you know, we've had a lot of conversations about I think your focus, and you got honorable mention when we had Tom Santucci on about what you guys are doing for kind of the broader community, and definitely felt that it was something that made sense, right? That in any organization, government or commercial, training and development is a huge asset, but also becomes a huge question, you know, at different times. So I could kind of start with the biggest question first, and then work through some of the lessons learned in your history. But you know, how should an organization start? I mean, where do you kind of go? I mean, to your point, that it's, you know, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. How do you start?
So what I looked at first was we kind of identified what were the basic skills we're looking for, and we kind of and I'll say it's a work in progress. We didn't, you know, send out surveys. I was just doing informal questions, asking people and meeting people. I mean, it was just all over the place, but it kind of boiled down to says, you know, we need, and I was looking at a lot of college programs also, but there was a networking component of that. So you had to have a basic understanding of network. So we got to have something to do with networking. A lot of times there was something with an OS. And so then what we're looking at was, where were we trying to send folks to training? What was, and there was a lot of surveys on what kind of training would you like for the, you know, your IDP when you're sending that in. A lot of folks were saying, I want Cisco training, I want Red Hat training, I want VMware training. And then the security was the 8140 also came in there. Well, the next thing we started looking at was the cost to send folks there. And at pre-COVID, it was, everybody wanted to go travel. And then, you know, we would see there was training, you know, 2 miles away in the shopping mall, or, you know, the vendor was offering training in Waikiki Beach. And I'm like, I want to go to Waikiki Beach, and as opposed to down the street. But so the cost wound up being, you know, I used a rough number of $3,000 per seat to send someone to a in-house training, and then that was just a fraction of the cost. Then you had the per diem, you know, the travel, the hotel, and all that. So what we started looking at was, you know, we could do it in-house, because, you know, I'm sitting there walking around and talking with folks in the hallway all the time that are just brilliant with all these technologies. And so we started saying, okay, we can do this in-house. And then it was a matter of going out and could it be done? Getting a place to do it was a huge, I didn't realize that at the time, but it was a huge issue trying to get space. Do you have a space to do training? And one of the things coming on the government was getting a classroom. So if a room became available, everybody wanted it. And I didn't realize it was that big a problem. I wound up doing a bunch of documentation. We wound up getting a room there at the Department of Navy. And then it was a matter of, we didn't want the training to be a death by PowerPoint. So then you're looking at, how do we do this? Can we do it? Do we have the folks to do it? And then you've got to select the right people, because you've got to have a certain temperament to stand in front of a classroom for 8 hours or 3 hours, whatever it is. And you may have to answer the same question 4 times in a row. I mean, you know, open the, click here and open up Word. Someone says, oh, I wasn't paying attention, I was on the phone, or what did you say to do? And you may get that question 3 or 4 times in a minute. And if you got someone that doesn't have the temperament to answer that going to just, go off and say, well, you should have been paying attention. You got to have so it's finding the right people to do these classes. Then we had to look and say, can we get equipment? What are we doing? And so the first thing we started with was, I said, all right, well, my experience was a lot with networking, did a lot with networking, operating systems, Windows, Red Hat. So that's kind of what we looked at. And so it was like, we can start with whatever your organization has, the skill level, then saying, how do we find resources to do the training for the hands-on portion? So I wound up going around and with the dermo gear and found a bunch of dermo gear that some worked, some didn't. I would I'd get a whole pallet, maybe 100 switches, and 70 worked and 30 didn't work. But it took a lot of time to go through those. So you're kind of looking to see what's available, and it took probably, I don't know, I'd say 9 months to kind of get everything together. But and then the next thing is to find the curriculum. One of the things that we've been really focused on is using vendor developed curriculum, because it changes so fast that you don't want to spend time trying to recreate this curriculum. And it's not based on, here's what Fred thinks is on the CCNA or Fred thinks is on the AWS. You can have the pre-developed curriculum ready to go, and then that instructor just needs to know how to look at the material and present it. So once we found all that, then was kind of sending out and saying, well, who needs what type of training? And one of the things it got really interesting is you've got to have someone that has I'll say the soft skills, those personal skills, to go ask people, hey, you may not get paid for this initially, but would you mind helping out doing this? Added work. And I'm not sure how much you've tried this with in the federal government, but hey, would you mind bringing on your way back from the restroom, bring me a roll of paper towels? You may get chewed out. Some people are like, that's not my, you go get it yourself. Well, I'm sitting there asking people to give up a week of training, to do training, and then the prep work on top of that. Well, I had some folks that were, brilliant. Well, Red Hat was one of them. That so there's different levels. So I had some folks identified that I'll say they had the skills weren't as strong as others, but their soft skills were really good, and they would engage with people. And then I had another set of folks that were real technical. Their soft skills were a little more on the rough side, but they really knew the material really well. So I had to talk to them about saying, hey, would you help out? And most people said, no, I'm not asking them to do nothing, because I'm going to get chewed out, right? They'll flat tell you, in a heartbeat that I'm not doing it. Well, I had to go up, and I was asking them, I said, all right, I says, I'm not putting you in the class where they're going to say, how do I click the mouse and all this kind of stuff. You're going to I want you to lead this. So the Red Hat, there was an RHC SA and RHCE, and I was trying to find enough folks to spread out the load so one person wasn't getting overloaded. But so you're going through and trying to find folks that you think are going to be the right fit for the classroom. Folks feel comfortable with, they can relate with, and so that was one of the. So there's a lot of moving parts. First one is one of our base technologies we're going to look at, and that's what we looked at. So we started with the networking, finding gear, so they can actually go in there and play with get hands-on, finding the right instructors. And then the other thing was to kind of build a pipeline, so we could say, here's some new professionals or some folks that are interested in training or to helping out, attend the class, and then you've kind of slowly build up your instructor pool. So that's kind of what we did. And then can you do it? That's finding the time and talk with the higher level management and getting management buy-in, and that's the biggest thing. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, and it was, some days were more successful than others. But yeah, getting management buy-in is a real big thing. But one of the things I would say now is if an organization wanted to, hey, how do we do this now? There's a lot of options, and one of them is a lot of the vendors have curriculum labs that are available at some I'll say a per seat charge. Some of them have a per seat charge, and others are at no charge. So there's options. So here at GSA we're doing a lot of the AWS courses. There's Cisco courses, and these are no fee other than the folks have to have the time to attend, and we're doing them all online. So, but if you wanted to set up in-house training, you could let me know, and I can say if you need Cisco, if you need AWS, if you need Microsoft, here's some ways so you don't have to recreate the wheel to find out where are these resources. But there's a lot of resources out there. And then Juniper Network's another one, so it's not just Cisco, it's networking. Palo Alto's another one. And all these are based on hands-on labs. EC Council, so they do the certified ethical hackers. There's a big one. There's a digital forensics, and then and so we've been doing this for a year, a few years, and as you start getting out, you start getting more and more of the vendors. The different technologies are, hey, we want to get involved in this. We want to help support. Here's what we've got, and then there's the CompTIA that have the Security Plus. There's the Cloud Plus. There's Cyber Security Analyst, and a lot of resources. So if you've got questions on, what are resources available, and I can say, here's the list that I know about, and you don't have to spend hours trying to dig through and find the stuff. And POCs, who's the POCs? That's a big thing.
Yeah, Fred, it sounds like, per usual with a lot of the government stuff that we deal with, it was the training budget, but you persevered and pulled it through and pulled everything together. So how do you keep that going? How do you, like, when new technologies come available, how do you bring those into the training program and make that decision of in-person versus vendor? And, talk us through like what that looks like, please.
So it takes no sleep, first of all, lots of coffee.
Of course.
And constantly looking at just talking with folks. And so I worked a lot with a lot of the education universities, Trident Technical Community Colleges, one down here in Charleston, worked really closely with them. And so one of the things that happens with if you're in a .edu, there's a lot of programs that are already set up for education universities. So Red Hat was one of them. So the Red Hat Academy. And if you were in education, they would say, we're going to give you this, you buy a subscription. And it's a support subscription. It's probably $600, give or take a year. But it's just for they've got the regional. So there's like Trident would help out if hey, how do I create an account? How do I create this? And then, so we've got these different vendors. Well, then with the government, we don't fit for profit. So we're not, selling the classes to make a profit. So we're not in that group, but we're not strictly in this education. So what happens a lot of times is I work a lot with the vendors, and you're trying to figure out a way to make it work. Some of them are a little easier than others. So we did AWS was real easy. Cisco was real easy. Red Hat worked out pretty well. So Red Hat has a program, Red Hat Online Learning, and if you're Navy Marine Corps, that's included in the support contract. And so they have access to this. It's like a $5,000 or $6,000 for a subscription. It's included in the Navy's Red Hat agreement. So that was so it's a matter of just kind of thinking outside the box a lot, looking what's available, and then I talk with the vendors. And with Red Hat, one of them was, you've got this Red Hat Online Learning. How do we use that here? And they had just came out with the subscriptions. So I met with Red Hat, and this one example. I said, all right. I said, so can we use the Red Hat curriculum that you've got because they meant it to be just for self-study. Here it is, you can look at it. And I said, well, how about if we use this as the curriculum and we use our subject matter experts in-house and use the curriculum? Wow, we didn't think about that. That's a good idea. So we started doing those in-house, and then we would do, and that's when I was with the, or at NIWIC. And again, so the days, I'll say, 30 years ago, you could be a one-man shop and be the web administrator, the email administrator, the network engineer. Today, there's a few that can pull it off, but for the most part, in my opinion, you need someone that's, active directory. You need someone that's Red Hat, because it's so much stuff. And the questions, and especially with our groups of folks that come in, the questions can be very low level, or they can be just way, way technical. So
how do to that, Fred, how do you level set, right? How do you basically, because I mean, what you guys are doing at GSA is quite interesting, right? You're trying to offer out something that is, a useful tool for, for a broad community. So how do you level set, right? Because I think there is this pendulum shift. I agree with you that there used to be, that handful of folks that you could go to, and they were your technical, no matter what the problem is, you threw them in. They could handle application issues, they could handle network issues, they could handle system issues. They could kind of cover the gamut, and ultimately that became, kind of as technology evolved, that became less of a skill set. And to your point, more and more people became, I would say, in my opinion, they become siloed.
yeah. So what we had to do is we said one of the base technologies. So we said, it's going to be networking, and we kind of use the Cisco as the networking, the cloud. So we've got we've got AWS and Azure. So those are the two that we've got access to. Working with Google, but it's a matter of how do we get access to the curriculum and then the labs. And one of the things that is we've been really pushing here with all of them is it's not just a 1 week or 3 day and you have access to the curriculum and the labs for that 3 days. It's you have it for months. Well, so then what happens is we'll say, let's get our baseline and then have some follow-up courses after that. So what we kind of do is, here's the AWS Foundations is, that's in January. In February, we're going to say here's the follow-on course, and February, and then March is the follow-on course. We kind of build them out throughout the year like that. And then what happens is you'll get, and one of my favorite stories was that we had a VMware course, Intro to VMware. It's the first one, install, configure, manage. And the instructor is over at NIWIC, but some folks are new professionals there day one and never logged in there. And then you've got other folks that in order to take the certification, you've got to set in this an approved VMware course. And otherwise it's $4,000 to go sit in the course to qualify to take the exam. Well, I'm sitting in the back drinking coffee, just watching it, and it just really good information. Well, during the first break, we're getting on remotely administrating these VM images. And one of the questions came up, and this is like the first morning, is that there was one guy that had been working on VMware for years, asked about, well, we were troubleshooting an issue with a VM down in Antarctica. We had to buy this satellite, and we only had access to connecting to the VM for 15, 30 minutes out of the day. And we were trying to upgrade, and the way we had it set up for it was updating the system. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is like the first 3 hours of VMware class, and he's talking about, and the instructor was John Howard. He's just rattling on, oh yeah, well, you do this, and here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're setting up. And I'm sitting there looking at, and we've got new professionals over there from day one. And I'm like, they're probably sitting there thinking, am I in the right class? I mean, because I've never even sat in this thing. So it's what happens is you get all different ranges in these classes, and you have to kind of keep saying, okay, well, the focus of this one, here's where we're at. And then what we're able to do with the government is saying, even if it's a vendor developed curriculum, stick with the curriculum, but say, if you're doing the exam, then here's what we're looking at. Look at this for the exam. If you're looking for best practices, how we have to configure this with the security technical implementation guides, these STIGs, it says we can't use any of this. If you're taking the exam, you need to know this, but here's best practices. Here's how you're going to operate in our environment. So we kind of bounce back and forth. And then based on who's in the class, we modify it saying, okay, module 1 is how many are comfortable with this? And you might be able to, skip that module altogether and add on stuff. So it's kind of a class by class, depending on who wants to do the class. And we did more tailoring of courses early on when we're doing it in person, and they would kind of pick and choose and says, okay, I want a AWS class or a network class, but I want to really cover these specific topics here. We could do a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. And we've started doing mini sessions now with the online, which just says here, it's not curriculum developed. They're pretty loose. I'll say the labs, because I'm just going through and making screenshots and, here's how to create a network design. And that's, if you want to look at all the modules on the descriptions and the background of all the services, what that means, here's where you look at this, but we're going to just dive in and configure the stuff. So it's a moving target, and that's where you also have to have an instructor, and the students also have to realize some of it's going to be a lot more structured, and then we get into the more tailored classes, and so we'll have anywhere from, I'll say, 75 to 100, 150 students at or team members at one time in there, and you start doing a lab, and you've got the Q&A and also the questions, and I can't log in. I'm on step 4, I'm on step 2, I don't have my account, and your email, the chat just explodes. Well, you've got to have, the instructor's got to be able to look at this and kind of keep it cool. So it's definitely, you need someone that knows the material, but has the right temperament to deal with, I just said that it's in the chat, kind of stuff. So it's constantly a moving target.
So Brad,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think like that's kind of like where I want to dive a little bit is, there's a lot of vendor training out there, and I think you like the key ones, and, and then there's also the positive for in-house training. And I know that like being able to tailor those sessions and having the right people there, excuse me, to tailor them is important. So, how do you find that balance between in-house and vendor? I know, in my position, when we have vendor training, how the government has to use certain cloud environments. And that's really what I want to hone in on is like, when we have to use certain cloud environments, we're constrained a little bit more than the public is, obviously. And so, the vendors don't always teach to those constraints. And, we've seen some back and forth. So, talk us through like the in-house versus the vendor training, and how GSA is really honing in on either one of those for the cloud training.
So originally, and personally, I prefer face-to-face training. You're sitting there looking at these students, and you say something, and you look out and you see deer in the headlights. You says, all right, that didn't work. Online, you don't know who's paying attention, who's just logged in. And so it's worked during the COVID. We've been able to hit the masses. We'll do what I call an early edition, and it's geared towards East Coast or continental United States. We'll do a late edition, and we've had folks from San Diego, California, Washington, Alaska. We've had Hawaii, Japan, Korea, Guam. And I'm kind of like, all right, so what time zone are we in? So so that part of the online works well. it doesn't work as well, the face-to-face, because I prefer the face-to-face. You can sit there and look when you get to the end, and the main focus is getting those labs, getting your hands on the labs. And it's just a lot easier to troubleshoot the lab environment when folks are looking at one another, and you can build a, you know, we're going to succeed as a team here. You know, everyone can help out. So that's that.
So,
I
so are you,
prefer.
are you seeing with labs in kind of the new COVID era changing? I mean, are you seeing some innovation from folks on that?
Yes. So one of the things we've been working with AWS and then also Azure. So even if you're doing it if we were doing them live, so when we did do them live, all the labs are up in the clouds. So you've got access to the labs. The students have access to the lab. So it's not, you know, so if you're on site and here's my, you know, a stack of real gear that I'm configuring, I can go home and the team members have access to the same resources for, I've got it set up to run through the end of December. So they've got access to, they don't have to say, you know, I didn't get it this week. This is a bad week for me. I've got something going on. You've got the whole year to go back in and review it. And then a lot of the vendors are getting labs up and running remotely. So working with AWS. And then, so one of the things with, you know, I get back to Terry Lee's comment about vendor specific. So, you know, it's not, you know, here's AWS taking for the mass public. Well, with ours, we've got different requirements. And so we've talked with AWS about saying, okay, what are the unique requirements that, you know, we can have courses that are geared towards our, the Navy, the Marine Corps. And we've got POCs that are saying, I'm the POC for the Marine Corps and we're running courses, or here's some best practices on how to set up what our requirements are. I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Terry.
One of the other things that we had talked, sorry, in the prep session was the meeting, like the cybersecurity workforce credentials. I know, like Chris has asked about, like, you know, finding the right skill sets and stuff. I think it's important that, like, the training is addressing not only the technologies that need to be learned in the right forum, like you've said, but also like to meet not only the technology requirements, but how that kind of checks the boxes for a cybersecurity workforce. That's one of the things that we always have to be cognizant of. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure. So we, and the different vendors that we work with, some have it already laid out in the different modules. They've actually have it mapped to the roles in the NIST and NICE framework there. So we've also been working with NICE or NIST, working on mapping the different curriculums like Cisco, the CCNA, and there's all these different modules. And so this module maps to this skills, the cybersecurity role, you know, 1-2 or whatever it is. I'm mapping those up. So we've got the Cisco, now I'll use Cisco, Juniper, there's the AWS, Microsoft, and then ISC Square, they have the CISSP, acronym soup here, ISSM, I think the other one, but depending on if you're an IAT or IEM, those different roles there. So we're in the early stages of trying to map up with the cyber security roles, but all at a high level, we'll look at the certifications. You know, here the IAT, and I'll say the big ones are Security Plus and CISSP. Those are kind of the big ones there. For the IEM, you've got a few more rules. There's a forensics handlers and those kind of things, and those get into the EC councils. We've partnered with a lot of the vendors, Cisco, AWS, Microsoft, ISC Square, EC Council. I think that's the main ones. And so we kind of let them develop, and, you know, and for most, a lot of them have developed it. It says, if you take this, the CCNA that maps to the IAT or the CompTIA, the Cloud Plus, Security Plus. They've got a CYSA, CYSY that is also, and I think that's in the cyber range here. So, and another thing that I haven't talked about yet is partnering with the different vendors. And this kind of goes back to the first question of how do you identify or set up a training program, is if you become a partner with these like ISC Square, they develop the current curriculum and it maps to the current exam. So if it's a CISSP, if it's the, I'll use size, and they also have a CCSP, Certified Cloud Security Professional. That's the two we've kind of looked at. Well, partnering with them, they develop a student kit. That student kit is roughly about $900. I rounded up to 1,000 just for easy math. But so the student kit would be $1,000. Then if you went to go to a CISSP course, you're looking at $4,000 to $5,000 for the seat itself. Well, we can do it for $1,000 a seat, and so you're saving, could be $4,000, and you get the curriculum that is developed by the vendor. So if that changes, you don't have to drop the PowerPoints. So, and we've got the same with EC councils, CompTIA. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, so I was going to say, I think in the building, right? I don't want to lose. I think one of the key aspects of what I think you've done for the community is what you're doing at GSA. So, maybe we could spend a little time on what you're doing with GSA and the program. And again, for those the attendees, the link is in the chat. And as we go through this, if you have questions, it might be good. But I do think that what you guys are doing for the broader community is key. So if you wouldn't mind spending a little bit of time on that, then we can probably dive in on under different aspects of that.
Sure. So what we've done with the community of practice, we've and there wasn't a whole lot of planning as Tom said. We didn't do a whole lot of research. We just says, here's what we have available. And so it's cloud community practice. We partnered with AWS, so we're AWS Academy with AWS and then Cisco Academy. Those are the two that we've have up and running right now. We're running online courses, and you can sign up for these courses. There's no charge for them. It's just a matter of, you got to, if you do them during your hours, your program has to pay for your labor hours, but there's no charge. And then, so we've got the AWS, we've got the, let's see, foundation and the architect. So there's 2 5-day, and then we've got the developers coming up also. So you've got access to curriculum, the instructor-led course. There's hands-on labs that you have access to, and when you create this account, there's no credit card on this. That's the other part. So you got to be careful of. A lot of times you go in there and create these accounts online or for AWS or Azure, and they'll say put in your credit card. So ours, there's no credit card required, and you have access to the lab environment for months. It's a year, so I've got them set up. And then if your accounts, if you run low, you say I'm in there playing around and use up all my credits, I can go in and create another account or create another course, and you get another fresh $100 worth of credits. So you never kind of run out. I'll say the bad part is with our accounts, they're set up. You don't get keys to the city, so you only get access to certain systems. So you can't go in there and spin up this server with 300 processors and 50 gigs of RAM or 500 gigs of RAM, anything like that. They're going to cut you off. So you get these proof of concept machines. And then every month we'll run, the way we've got it set up right now, we do mini session the first week, and it's some kind of cloud. Again, there's no charge. It's hands-on. All the stuff is hands-on, working on creating videos, screenshots. That here's the directions, but here's a screenshot of that you can follow along later. So if you don't get it that night or that day, you can kind of look at it later. So the first week is some kind of cloud. The second one is a networking, and we've got Cisco Academy, so it's a lot with a real strong Cisco flavor to that. Then the once a month, we've started doing a 1 week long training that maps to a certification. So it's going to be either an AWS or a Cisco training, Cisco certification. And so the Cisco, there's a whole lot there. We got CCNA, which is entry level. That's kind of the baseline networking, CCNP. And then Cisco also has a lot of other curriculums that are available with programming. So there's Python, there's C++, and then there's some cyber optics or some cyber ops courses. And again, those security courses are going to have a very strong Cisco flavor because it's Cisco. But one of the things we've done is we've got a link. There's a registration link that says, I want to have access to the register for a course, or I just want to register and have access to the curriculum. So again, there's no charge for that. So you can do self-study and look at the videos. There's a bunch of videos that you can see. In the curriculum, they'll have an instructor that does a video in the curriculum. You get another flavor of the version of it with, if you're listening to it online with me talking about or someone else, you're going to get, definitely you're going to get my take on what it is. What are the highlights, the key takeaways of that. That might be different for someone else, though, but kind of get a different viewpoint. And I think the more viewpoints you get, it's going to help you. You'll pick little pieces up. So we've got the Cisco, the AWS. Again, you've got access to all the curriculum, take the courses or online or have self-study. Then we've partnered with EC Council. And that's another one. So I'll say the main ones that they do, they've got a certified network defender, and then they've got the certified ethical hacker. So those are some of the ones that we're looking at including right now. So that's what we've got going today as we speak. What we're looking for in the future, and it's kind of trying to build on. So I've been over here for about a year. So what we're trying to include now is to add the Security Plus, the CISSP, we've got the partnership. It's just a matter of putting some pieces together. So you got the CompTIA, the security, the CISSP, and then VMware. That's another one. Again, it's hands-on, and that's a key. And then Red Hat. So that's some other ones we're working on, including. And some of these have a student kit cost, and that's one of the things we're trying to work over there.
So we do have a question here, and actually it's a good question. I think is on both, right? That under the program that you've developed, been able to get industry certifications covered for your staff, renewal of Cisco, AWS, et cetera, and certs. Have you been able to secure dedicated training time for your staff as opposed to needing to take PTO? If yes, how did those conversations start? So I think that is something that I think, both government and industry battle with, right? Is you want to invest, but at the same time, you've got mission delivery. And Terry Lee, I think we talked about this actually on when you were a guest last year, that this is a big challenge. So, GSA has now opened up an opportunity for people to go get training. How do you fit that into your workday?
Is that for me or for Terry Lee?
No, it's for you, Fred. Terry Lee,
okay.
we had the conversation when Terry Lee was on, but
yeah. So it's I think it's different for different organizations. What we've tried to do here with GSA is to offer it at different time zones to help out. And that's one of the reasons we did. Here it is for, we say that I call it the early edition. It's going to be East Coast, the early editions, they'll usually run from the week long from 9 to 4. And then we run a late edition that runs from 5 o'clock Eastern time to 10 or 11. Those get a little rough because what happens, you know, right now I'm the lone instructor, and so if we're running the week long, this late edition, usually what happens is I'm getting emails early in the morning, so it's the day still starting around at 8, 9, and then the actual course starts at 5 o'clock at night, and it runs to 10 or 11. So those are kind of some, but at least it opens up some flexibility. So hey, I can't get off, you know, during the daytime. I can take it at night if folks are interested. And then there's also the self-study that says here's a link. You've got access to all the resources. And the curriculum, the way the curriculums, most of them have a video. It may not be quite as, you know, just watching a video to learn stuff, but you don't get that discussion. But you know, we try to make it available, you know, for, you know, East Coast, West Coast, and different time periods. But yeah, that is a challenge getting you know, time off during the day, and especially because we have a lot of folks say, hey, I want to sign up for everything, and then, you know, the job says, you know, we're going to give you 1 week off, but we can't afford to lose you for 3 weeks or, you know, 1 week a month.
So there was a question
That's one
about,
of the things.
go ahead, Terry Lee. I think I've got a delay on my side. So just real quick before you ask your question, Terry Lee, there was a question about the link for what's being discussed. It's in the chat. I also put it in the Q&A. So sorry, Terry Lee.
Nope, that's okay. It was a great question too. So I just, you know, looking forward and the contracts that we see coming out of DoD in the future, I think it's hitting like 5 of the major CSPs. We've talked mostly about 2, maybe 2.5 of them. How do you see GSA strategizing to take advantage of like where the DoD is heading and getting the workforce trained to be able to consume the contract as they plan on letting it with the 5 major CSPs? Have you guys started having those conversations yet?
I don't know if we've had the specific questions or the conversations with that, but so GSA. So we just started doing the training roughly one year ago, and they've been working on a lot of the different playbooks, so the tagging, the cloud strategy, and so I know we're working on that. One of the things that comes up in all the training is, you know, if you're doing an AWS training, you know, you can do everything in AWS. Well, if you're taking Azure is going to say you can do everything in Azure and we're the best. If you do Google, they're all going to have the same thing. Well, in reality, what you're going to have is, I've got my stuff on premise, I've got some stuff in AWS, I've got some stuff in Azure, and I've got some stuff that could be in Google. How do we get these multi-cloud hybrid environments to work with each other? So we are talking about that. I'm not sure where we're at, but it's a evolving conversation all the time with that. So we're trying to keep abreast of that as best as possible. And there are some lab environments that have a single sign-on where you have access to all 3 of those, you know, and then there's Red Hat's got a version there, VMware's got a version, Oracle's got they're all got their own cloud environment there. I know there's one vendor that has, and we're working on trying to gain some resources, because right now everything we're using for training is under like Cisco Academy, Azure, or AWS Academy, and we're working on trying to bring in, you know, how do we do the transfer of funds to secure resources for the community as a whole. And so one of the things we're looking at is some platforms that are available, purchase these platform, or I'll say licensing, and have it like a library where he says, I want to have access to this resource for 1 month. And it's a check-in, check-out. So we have 100 of them, 100 licenses. You get it, you log in. It's a sandbox. There's no credit card, but I get to see Google, I get to see Azure, I get to see AWS. I can create instances in all these different areas and have them talk. And the really neat thing about with the sandboxes that they have is, and I tell people, I says, when you create this, it's on the internet, so don't go crazy with anything. You know, keep it pretty bland, because you know you're creating a web server and it's live and running for 10, 15, 20 minutes. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Go ahead.
No, so how, it's interesting, right? Because you do offer a number of options for individuals to to come to GSA and come to the program, and obviously building. Have you started the tracking? We had Robin Reese on at one point, and one of the big things that they were looking at just from a workforce development standpoint was kind of the data analytics, right? Tracking, who was taking what, are they returning, where are they heading, what's their interest, where did they end up? Are you guys getting that level of detail, or just more keeping keeping tabs of who's registered?
So we have some analytics on this. So one of the things is how many classes we've had, who's registering, and where they're from. We haven't done a whole lot of analytics of how did this relate to your job? Were you able to apply it to your job the next day? That kind of stuff. But we'll do the registration when you log in. It says what group are you from, where you're located, and then we'll do a course completion survey, send that out, and see who feedback. And it's like we want what's the good and what didn't work well. What do we need to change? So we're constantly changing the delivery, modifying the schedule and that. So we haven't really like trackings, certifications. We haven't tracked who's certified. We just get emails and we hear them from the emails that, hey, I passed my cert, thanks. But we haven't done a whole lot of analytics beyond how many are signed up for the course, how many courses have you taken, and we've had this year we're gonna hit some milestones this year because we had, I want to say it was it was either 2,000 or 3,000 we had last year that attended. It was about a $5 million based on $3,000, and then so we should hit our 100 class that we've done sometime here this year. Just kind of looking, it's like I think we're getting close to that, hitting it. We should hit it at some point. I think that's kind of a little bit of a milestone, I think. And then the number of students, I'm not sure how many we've had come through multiple times, and so we've one of the things is when they sign up for the class, I'll say how many, if you will, put a 0 in the chat if this is your first time, and then put a 1, 2, 3, 4 if you've attended. And so it's not unlikely to see folks, the numbers 5, 6, and you'll have a lot of repeat folks that have come in and attended the different courses.
Right. Sorry, Terry Lee, I got a lag on you, so I'm not sure if you were asking a question or not.
No.
Oh, okay. So we're kind of coming to the tail end here. So you covered the program. Again, the program is available, I guess, from a detail standpoint. It's available to everybody in the government, or just .gov domain, or both.
So it's available to .gov.mil. So we've been and we don't right now federal contractors. It's available. Military. So we've had Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Army.
Okay.
We've had all those, and we're working on trying to include, we've been talking with .edu some, so we're working on trying to set up a separate program for the .edus to say, okay, here's more of a resource for instructors, so it's someplace to come and says a sharing of knowledge, what's the best practices for those kind of things. But they've already have a lot of those already in place, so it's a matter of just getting GSA getting plugged into those different groups.
Okay. And so without the data analytics that, I mean, you know, you kind of described this. So the models that you've had seem like they've been success. And would you say that there is the opportunity in the build it and they will come kind of using a field of dreams aspect, that, you know, this is something that maybe people want but don't necessarily always articulate? Or, okay, I mean, what have you seen again in that getting it started? I mean, we kind of started with that, but I want to finish with it because I do think it is, you know, big for organizations to think about.
Yeah, so it's exactly, it's like that field of dreams, build it and they'll come, and they have showed up in strong numbers. And it's almost like too good of a thing, because they'll say, when I first started, we were doing classes like three 1-week courses in a row, and I was teaching them. But I mean, you teach 8 hours a day for 3 weeks in a row, and you're exhausted. So we've kind of modified the schedule a little bit. But one of the things is to bring in, you know, at least one more instructor. We're looking at that, and then increasing the course offering. So again, that would be the more security, the Security Plus, CISSP, VMware, Red Hat, and then cloud, Kubernetes, containers, and securities and all that. So it's been it's not uncommon to, you know, to throw it out there and have 200 folks that sign up, and you're like, whoa, that's a little. When you're doing if it's just a broadcast, not a problem. But when you start doing labs that, you know, 50, 75 people have questions on, hey, I'm on step 7, no, I'm on step 3, I'm on the next lab, what about, you know, it just is like, whoa, hang on. So,
Right.
But, yeah, and you know, I'm kind of like I looked at Colonel Sanders, so he started at 67 and built an empire, and I'm like, and when I started it at the, I'm not 67, but I look at you know, building a training framework that will support the government, and I look at it more of a knowledge transfer, saying here's a safe place to come, and says what's going on, because the last thing you want to do is have someone come in and, you know, be timid, because we all want to think, hey, you know, I don't want to look bad, and so you got a safe place for folks to come in, try things out, and say, hey, I didn't get that to work. I think I'm clicking, and it could be a, you know, user error. It could be the system, the laptop. You know, we've got security requirements that doesn't allow you to do pop-ups, which blocks the labs from working. Those kind of things. But I see it being able to grow, get huge. We've got a lot of demands. I mean, I'll get emails from commanders and the price model. And one of the jokes that I'll tell them is like, you know, normally you get what you pay for, and you know, it's free, so hopefully it's better than, you know, nothing. But we've been, you know, have a good time with it, and give folks access to the curriculum, the labs, for an extended period of time. And I think it's going to continue to get bigger. And you know, what Tom was just trying to, we're getting to the point where we get these per seat kits like CISSP. Here's I'll say it's $1,000. Well, or the Security Plus, that one is $125. Well, you know, getting different groups to say, okay, hey, I'll, we can attend all this training for free, but here's some funds to cover Security Plus kits, and pulling, I'll use now, hey, if you got training dollars and you get all this stuff, it's at no charge, but if you can help cover the student kits for a Security Plus class, that gets us over that hurdle. Someone else cover the student kits for a CISSP, so you're not constantly rebuilding, trying to recreate the curriculum. So that's kind of what I'm talking. And it's out there. There's some groups, the federal government, they got the cybersecurity initiative that says we need skilled folks, and it's not getting any better. It's getting, as we've had this meeting for an hour, it's probably our level of expertise has gone down instead of increased overall with the folks needing training. So it's constantly, we need training all the time, in my opinion there.
No, and again, I think what you guys are doing as GSA, offering up opportunities, both from a lessons learned in the overarching Dan Pomeroy's organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
But specifically in this in this opportunity to provide basically a launch pad for training, and an opportunity for a number of folks is fantastic. So
let me add one more thing. You just so the launch pad. So another thing we're looking at is, that always comes up is, where do we find these folks? And if we're training them, then what I was looking at was, when I was talking with Tom Santucci, is if we can get it with the education, the colleges, that's the new kids coming up, and there's some impressive ones coming through. Being able to connect. So they're saying, where am I going to get a job? Everyone wants 3 years, 5 years experience. Well, if we say, here's a central pool, because it's like, I can't find the people, and I'm seeing here one group say, I can't find people. I start with education, says, where are the jobs? I'm like, we just need to connect these, and you've got so we're working on that also. That's one of the things that's trying to set up, says map it between the government, create a contact that says, here are the ones that are graduating and looking for jobs, and here's what we're looking for, the skills. So helping out with that. I'll finish up there.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time today, Fred, and thank you everybody for joining. We will see you everybody in about 2 weeks, and I really appreciate your time. And again, before you go ahead and grab that link to the GSA program to give you a little bit more information on the classes that are available to individuals, and feel free to reach out to that program if you have any questions. So Kirsten, did you want to grab a quick picture? And appreciate everybody's time.
Of course. Okay, everyone smile. 3, 2, 1. Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.